Today's lesson is finding slope from 2 points. If you have not already printed the video guide, pause the video, print it, and come back. Our last lesson was on finding slope from 2 points that were graphed, and we counted the rise over the run and made fractions. Today we're going to be given 2 points, and then I will expect you to find the slope just given the 2 points. Now if you take a look with me at number 1, our first example, we have the point -6, -14, and the point -18, 19. Now, one option would be to actually graph these 2 points and then count the slope, so the rise and the run, and write a fraction and reduce if necessary. However, if you remember from our last video, those points had smaller coordinates. Okay, so our graphs only went up to about 6. So the problem here is my graph would have to go up or go down to -14 and up to +19. So these would be very large graphs. And we would run out of space very quickly, or we would have to use a whole piece of paper for just one problem. So instead of graphing these, there's actually a formula that we can use called the slope formula that will help us find the slope between the 2 points without graphing. Now, this formula is on the reference sheet for the HSE test. So it is given to you. You don't have to memorize it, but you do have to know how to use it. So we're going to look at that right now. It's m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So first thing we need to know is that m means slope. So whenever you see m in algebra, they're talking about the slope in any formula or anything like that. So m is the slope, and it is equal to y2. Now these sub numbers actually represent the different points. Okay, you'll see 2's and you'll see 1's. 1 is the first point of the problem. The sub number of 2 means the second point of the problem. And then we have y's at the top and x's at the bottom. Okay? Every point has an x coordinate and a y coordinate. Okay? X always comes first, and the way that I remember that is it's alphabetical. So it's x, comma, y. So my x coordinate comes first here, then my y coordinate. So I'm going to put x and then a 1 next to it because this is the first point. And this is my y coordinate, so I'm going to put y and then a 1 next to it because it's the y coordinate of the first point. Same thing with my next point. The first number is x. Now this time I'm going to put a 2 next to it because it's the second point. This is the x coordinate of the second point. That's what x sub 2 means. And then for the 19, I'll put a y sub 2 because it is the y coordinate of the second point. Then you use these numbers and plug it into the formula. So let's take a look at number 1. We have m equals y sub 2 is supposed to come first. So if I look, I have x1, y1, x2, here's y sub 2. It's positive 19. So I put 19 here. There will always be a subtraction sign between y2 and y1. It's part of the formula. So you always put a subtraction sign here. After that, we need y1. y1 is a -14. So you need the negative sign and then the 14. It's subtraction because of the formula. It's negative because of the point. Make sure you have both of them. It makes a difference in your answer. Okay? After that, we need our denominator. x2 comes first, so I look, and this is my x2, -18. So -18 goes at the bottom. Then a subtraction sign. Again, it's subtraction in between these two numbers. x1 is right here at the beginning. It's -6, so I need the -6. So you have to have the subtraction and the negative symbol. From there, you do the subtraction. Now, what you learned from adding integers, which is another previous lesson, if you haven't looked at it, you need to. When we are subtracting integers, we can change all subtraction to adding the opposite sign. Your first number stays the same. Instead of subtract, we make this plus, and instead of -14, I make it +14. And then I can actually do my addition or subtraction, whatever it is. So in this case, I have positive 19 plus positive 14. So that would be addition. 19 plus 14 is 33. So that goes at the top. For the denominator, I have negative 18 minus negative 6. Change it to addition. And then we change the sign of the second number. So instead of negative 6, it becomes positive 6. So negative 18 plus positive 6, the signs are different, so I subtract. 18 minus 6 is 12. And I keep the sign of the bigger number, so this is negative 12. This is my slope, 33 over negative 12. But I can simplify it. If you can simplify it, you must simplify it. So 33 and 12 are both divisible by 3. So when I simplify this, 33 divided by 3 is 11. And negative 12 divided by 3 is negative 4. This is my answer. Remember, if you can simplify it, please simplify it, but do not make them into mixed numbers. We talked about that on the last video. No mixed numbers for slope, okay? Improper fractions are fine. And that's our answer, 11 over negative 4. All right, let's take a look at number 2. For problem number 2, we have 15, negative 2, and 6, negative 12. First thing we need to do is label our numbers. So I'm going to go through and say, okay, this is X, this is Y, this is X, this is Y. Remember, it's alphabetical order, X first and then Y. This is the first point of the problem, so these both have 1's next to them. This is the second point of the problem, so these both have 2's next to them. Now I can plug it into my formula. So I get M equals Y2 is right here, negative 12, so I put negative 12 minus, always a subtraction sign. Y1 is negative 2, so I put negative 2. I need the subtraction and the negative. X2 at the bottom is a positive 6 minus X1 is positive 15, so 6 minus 15 at the bottom. Okay, to do my subtraction, I'm going to go ahead and change it. This is a minus negative 2, so I'm going to change it to plus positive 2, adding the opposite. Negative 12 plus 2, the signs are different, so I subtract, and I get negative 10 over. For the denominator, this is a subtraction symbol. So instead of subtract, let's make it addition. This is a positive 15, so I have to change it to the opposite sign, which would be negative 15. Now, positive 6 plus negative 15, the signs are different, so I will subtract, which is 9. Keep the sign of the bigger number, negative 9, right? The negative 15 is larger. Negative 10 over negative 9. Again, we won't make these into mixed numbers. I can't simplify 10 and 9, however, if I look at my symbols right here, a negative divided by a negative is always positive. So the simplified version of this is positive 10 over positive 9. You do need to simplify it that way. If this is a multiple choice problem, they won't write their answer as negative 10 over negative 9. They will write it as positive 10 over positive 9. So you need to remember a negative over a negative becomes positive, even with fractions. Okay, that rule still applies. Okay? Let's take a look at number 3. For number 3, we have 8, negative 8, and 17, negative 2. First thing you need to do, label your numbers. X1, because that's the X corner of the first point, Y1, X2, and Y2. Now I can plug them into the formula. M equals, Y2 comes first, which is negative 2, that goes at the top, minus Y1 is negative 8. I need the minus and the negative. X2 is positive 17, minus X1 is 8. So I can go ahead change my subtraction to adding the opposite, so this becomes plus a positive, never change the first number. So negative 2 plus positive 8, the signs are different, so I'll subtract. 8 minus 2 is 6. The 8 is larger and it is positive, so I'm going to leave it as a positive 6. For the denominator, I'm going to make this plus negative 8, adding the opposite here. The signs are different, so I subtract. 17 minus 8 is 9. Keep the sign of the bigger number. 17 is bigger, so it's going to be a positive 9. 6/9. This can be simplified. Remember, if you can simplify it, you have to simplify it. So 6 and 9 are both divisible by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So my answer is positive 2/3 for my slope. Okay, stay with me because number 4 is a little bit different. Let's take a look. We've got negative 20 and negative 5. And we've got negative 20 and positive 11. Again, that first step should be labeling these coordinates. x1, y1, x2, y2. And then we can plug them into our formula. y2 comes first, which is 11, minus y1, which is negative 5, over x2, which is negative 20, minus x1, which is negative 20. So to go ahead and do this, I'm going to change my subtraction to addition. So it becomes adding the opposite, so instead of negative 5, it's positive. 11 plus positive 5 is positive 16. The signs are the same, so I just add them together. At the bottom, I have minus and negative again, so I make it plus a positive. Keep your first number the same. Negative 20 plus 20 is 0. So this is why this problem is different, okay? 16 divided by 0. You can't actually divide by 0. It's impossible, okay? You can't have a number here at the bottom, all right? When they're asking you to divide by 0, they're telling you start out with something, any amount. In this case, it's 16, okay? So if I gave you $16, then I want you to make 0 groups from it, all right? The problem with that is if you start with something, there's no way to make 0 groups. You're always going to have at least one group somewhere of that 16, okay? Even if it's in your pocket because you're trying to hide it. So the 0 can't be at the bottom. You can't do that. So when this happens, this is actually the undefined slope. Because you cannot divide by 0. It's impossible. And if you think about it, if I made just a rough sketch of these 2 points, negative 20, negative 5, that would mean go to the left 20 and then go down 5. So I'd have a point right about here. Negative 20, positive 11 would mean go to the left 20 and then go up 11, which would be right about here. And if I drew that line in, this is the undefined slope. This is the one that looks like a wall where the person's falling off, okay? They couldn't actually climb this, okay? So it makes sense that when 0 is the denominator, your line is going to be straight up and down, which is the undefined slope. So this is your answer, okay? So 0 cannot be in the denominator. If it is, then undefined. All right, let's try one more together, and then I'll have you do the last 3 on your own, and you can check your answers when you're done. So number 5. We have 15, 8, and negative 8, 2. So first thing, label those coordinates. This is x1, y1, x2, y2. Plug it into the formula. M equals y2 minus y1 would be 2 minus 8 over x2 minus x1. x2 is negative 8 minus x1 is 15. So n equals Change your subtraction to adding the opposite. So this becomes plus instead of positive 8. We make it negative 8. The signs are different, so I will subtract. 8 minus 2 is 6. Keep the sign of the bigger number, so it's negative 6. Okay, change the denominator as well. Instead of minus 15, make it plus negative 15. Negative 8 plus negative 15 is negative 23. Now, 6 and 23, there's no common divisor here, but the one thing that you can change, remember, if you have a negative over a negative, it does become positive. So my actual answer would be positive 6 over positive 23. That would be my slope. At this time, go ahead and pause the video, try the last 3 problems on your own, and then come back and check your work with what I have. For the last 3 problems, number 6, we're still going to use the formula. Make sure that you label your points so you know which one goes where. I set it up. I made my changes in red so you can see I changed my subtraction to adding the opposite. And I got 0 over negative 5. Now this is different from problem number 4 because 0 is in the numerator. Okay? So this is like I'm giving you nothing and asking you to make groups of it. The reason why this works is because you can make as many groups out of nothing as you want. They're just going to be groups of nothing. So whenever you have 0 divided by any number, the answer is just going to be 0. So 0 at the numerator is the 0 slope, the constant slope. Okay? 0 in the denominator means it's vertical, and that's when it's undefined. So you're just going to have to remember what those two are. If it helps you, make a little sketch of these 2 points, just a general idea. And you'll be able to see very clearly which one is 0 and which one's undefined. For number 7, I have 6 and I changed it to plus positive 9 over 11 plus negative 13. And when I do my addition and subtraction, I get m equals 15 over negative 2. And you cannot make it into a mixed number because you're not supposed to. And you can't simplify it, so that's just our answer, 15 over negative 2. And lastly, number 8, we should have negative 10 plus negative 1 when you change it over negative 11 plus negative 3, which gives you negative 11 over negative 14. And remember, a negative over a negative divided by negative is a positive, okay, even for fractions. So make sure that you change that because they will on the test. And that's the end of our lessons on finding the slope from 2 points.